Good afternoon and welcome to Yggdrasil Gardens. I'm your host, Chance Walton. Today I have a new beard care product for you. This one is Day Liquid Tonic. It is a beard oil for the daytime. This scent is Surtur's Fury. It's leather and spicy, smells good. So the purpose of beard oil is to hydrate the skin under your beard, not just the hairs. Because when the hair gets long, it starts poking the dry skin, starts drying out your skin. So it's very important to use beard oil to hydrate your skin underneath, keeps it from being dry and itchy. And if you're like me, not a whole lot of hair, so I like to put it on my hair. It helps with dandruff, helps with the itch on your scalp as well. All right, well, without further ado, let's get into this gardening. As you can see, yesterday I put out fertilizer. That's what these little green, white, and black pearls are, all in the garden. Now with fertilizer, when you put it out, you want to make sure you dust your plants, because you see, you can end up with stuff like that where you have plant burn. You definitely don't want fertilizer to sit on the green, the leaves, the vegetation, because it can and oftentimes does burn. And you don't want your plants to be damaged, because anytime there's damage, they have to take the time to recover. Now with that, fertilizer is made up of 3 components and fillers. The main components of fertilizer are your first number, which is nitrogen. And your numbers are also in percentages. So the fertilizer I put out yesterday is a 25-6-12. So that's 25% nitrogen, 6% phosphorus, 12% potassium. Nitrogen is very important for your plants. Nitrogen is what gives it the green color. It also is what encourages growth and photosynthesis. Phosphorus is very important because it affects root development. The better your phosphorus levels, the better your roots will develop, the bigger your roots will be, the more expansive they can spread. And lastly, potassium or potash. Potash is important because it affects the overall growth and health of your plants. Like from roots to leaves to everything, it affects the overall health. And if you want your plants to be big and healthy, you definitely need to make sure you have potassium. Now with that, we should talk about something else with your soil, and that is carbon. Now I know there's a lot of talk, especially in the, especially when it comes to global warming. Now carbon in the air, that is where you get your problems with global warming. Carbon in the soil, however, is great. You cannot have too much carbon in your soil. The more organic matter and carbon together that you have in your soil, the better your soil is going to do, the more rich it's going to be, and the more versatile your soil will be at growing anything you want to grow. So carbon is very important, and you can put carbon down in the form of biochar. You can buy it online. Most stores usually have biochar. But what carbon does in the soil is it gives a home for the microorganisms that live in the soil. So if you can put down as much carbon as humanly possible, one, your soil is also going to retain water better. And if it retains water better, it's going to feed those microorganisms a whole lot better. And when you have good microorganisms, good carbon levels, you have good mycorrhizal fungus. And like we talked about in the last video, mycorrhizal fungus is very important, because if you have plants that are struggling, it can take some of the nutrients that are not needed from other plants and transfer them to the ones that are struggling. Now with that, your soil pH we talked about last time, make sure it's not too low, not too high. And another very important aspect to gardening that I will probably be doing after I get manure to put on this garden here in April is gypsum. Now gypsum is very important for your plants, especially if you're using granular fertilizer like I've used yesterday. A lot of fertilizers have a lot of salt in them. Nitrogen tends to come out as a salt, potassium, phosphorus, those both are kind of salts. Let's see here. When you put gypsum out, you can't really overdo gypsum. It's beautiful in that aspect, but what gypsum does as far as your plants goes is it turns all the salts water soluble again. Once those become water soluble, the plants are able to use more of the nutrients available in the soil and take up more. But it will, like I said, it'll push out the salts. So, you know, a lot of gardens struggle because there's a lot of salts in manure. There's a lot of salts in fertilizer. And what happens is over time, over many years and many growing seasons and many fertilizations, your soil becomes salty. Well, we all know what salted earth tactics means. It means that nothing will grow. It's too salty, too high of a salt content. So what you do to flush that out is you apply gypsum. A whole bag, 40-pound bag, across the whole garden. You cannot put too much gypsum down. It will help all the plants out, helps everything take up more nutrients. And if you're like me, I have a problem with cats in the neighborhood like to come and use my garden boxes as a litter box. There's not a whole lot you can do if you have cats that pee in the garden. You know, there's some products you can try to put out. I've tried even making my own products by mixing black pepper, cayenne pepper, and garlic powder together and sprinkling it in the garden. It works temporarily. Sometimes mothballs can work, but you're not supposed to use those outside. If you do, you want to use a jug with holes in it so that the air can leak out and the smell is supposed to keep them away. I've not had any luck with keeping any cats or animals out of my garden. So the only way I found was to put plants in it. And once the plants are in, the cats leave it alone. Now, with the cats peeing in the garden, urine. If you have a lawn and you have female dogs especially, boy dogs can cause this too, but it's very prevalent with female dogs. When they go and urinate in a spot, when they go to pee, there's a reason that you will always see a dead spot where a female dog pees. It's the same thing as if your guy who treats your lawn was to come by with fertilizer and dump a good bit of it in a single spot, or spray a single spot a little harder than the rest of it. It over fertilizes it, and it's very rich in salt. Uric acid has a lot of ammonia in it, which is very salty. If you have that issue with your lawn and you have a, you know, weak, thin lawn and you have dogs, try buying you a bag of gypsum and applying it wherever their dogs roam, wherever they go to the bathroom. And it usually will turn the salts water soluble, push them out, and the grass can recover. I see this all the time in lawn care. It's very easy to fix, a very common issue. So that covers us on fertilizer. Like we said, 3 main components. Your first number is always nitrogen. Your second number is always phosphorus. Your last number is always potassium. We covered gypsum. You want to use that every year, because that gypsum will turn those salts water soluble and help it make it so that the plants can actually take up more of the nutrients. We talked about biochar and carbon. Carbon is very important. The higher your carbon levels, the better your garden is going to do, the better your plants are going to do, the better microbiome you're going to have for the microscopic organisms that live in your soil that are beneficial. Last thing I want to talk about is humic acid. Humic acid is a soil conditioner, so it just improves the quality of your soil, and you can use that. I would say once a year it would be safe to use it. You can come in, put it on, but do it before you do your gypsum. That way, if it does add any salts to the soil, the gypsum flushes it out. So humic acid will definitely prepare your soil for planting. It'll make everything much more rich to where it holds more of the nutrients instead of them washing out. And that's about it for today's video. We finally got some calmer weather here in Alabama. Last time we had some storms blowing in, audio's cutting out from the wind. Today it's calm, it's 75 degrees, it's nice and sunny. Here's some strawberries that I've been growing. Now, like I said, see, that is fertilizer burn from where some fertilizer sat just overnight. So I'm gonna come through here and dust some of that off. The rosemary's blooming, which that's a great thing. Rosemary, I'm gonna add this into the video here. Rosemary is very great for gardens. Rosemary and basil. If you can grow 2 herbs in your garden, grow rosemary and basil. They attract bees, pollinators. They love those 2 plants. And if you have basil planted by your tomatoes, you're not gonna have to worry about making sure your tomato plants get pollinated, because those bees will come in and they will spend their life living on the basil and the rosemary, and every day they will pollinate everything for you. So they make life a lot easier, and you're working with the environment, you're working with nature rather than against it by doing, you know, pesticides constantly, because pesticides, they kill the bees there. And when you kill the bees, then you're gonna have the competition of the pest bugs that do damage your plants, like leaf bugs. Whereas having the rosemary and basil, wasps, parasitic wasps, and bees, they'll fight off all those pest bugs. You always want to make sure that you're putting stuff in your garden that benefits the beneficial bugs. You don't want to kill off all the bugs indiscriminately, because you need bugs living in your soil. You need bugs living on your plants. For everything to work in coexistence and synchronicity, everything has to be in balance. Well, all right, folks, that's it for our second video. This one's a little bit longer. And again, that beard care product from this first video, Surtur's Fury beard oil by The Beard Struggle. Check them out. Use code CHANCE1228 for 20% off at checkout.